Imagine a teenager, barely out of high school, living a life most only dream of. He travels the world for free, stays in luxurious hotels and rubs shoulders with the elite. This wasn't a fantasy, it was the reality of Frank Abagnale Jr., a master con artist who turned deception into an art form. Before his 19th birthday, Frank had already cashed millions of dollars in fraudulent checks. He convinced people he was an airline pilot, a doctor, even a lawyer, all without a proper license. His life reads like a Hollywood movie script, full of thrilling escapes, audacious cons, and a constant game of cat and mouse with the authorities. Frank's story isn't just about the thrill of the con, it's a glimpse into the mind of a master manipulator who understood human nature better than most. He exploited trust, played on perceptions, and lived a life most wouldn't even dare to imagine. But how did a teenager from New York pull off such elaborate scams? What drove him to this life of deception? To understand the legend of Frank Abagnale, we need to go back to the beginning, to a time before the aliases and the international manhunt. It's a story that's as much about the man as it is about the cons, a journey into the making of a legend. Frank Abagnale Jr. was born with a knack for deception. His early life, far from the glitz and glamour of his later escapades, played a crucial role in shaping the master con artist he would become. Growing up in New York, Frank was a bright but mischievous child, always pushing boundaries and testing limits. His father, a successful businessman, instilled in him the importance of appearances and social standing, lessons Frank would later exploit in his cons. One of Frank's earliest cons, a harbinger of his future exploits, involved a gas station credit card scheme. He would pump gas, then subtly damage the credit card reader so that the transaction wouldn't go through. The gas station attendant, none the wiser, would let him go. This seemingly minor scam revealed Frank's innate ability to think on his feet and exploit loopholes. He understood the power of perception, how a carefully crafted image could make people believe anything. As Frank grew older, his cons became more daring. He discovered the thrill of impersonation, of slipping into different identities and living multiple lives. He realized that people rarely questioned those in positions of authority, a weakness he would exploit time and again. His first major con, impersonating a Pan Am pilot, would cement his legend and set him on a path that would take him around the world, always one step ahead of the law. Frank's success lay not just in his audacity, but in his meticulous attention to detail. He was a master of observation, studying the nuances of his chosen professions to blend in seamlessly. When he impersonated a Pan Am pilot, he didn't just don a uniform, he learned the jargon, the protocols, even forging FAA credentials. He understood that confidence was key. If he believed in his own deception, others would too. His cons were elaborate performances, carefully constructed to exploit weaknesses in the system. For instance, he learned that banks often cleared checks based on the account number rather than the signature. He used this knowledge to his advantage, creating fake checks and cashing them at different banks before anyone caught on. He moved from city to city, leaving a trail of baffled bank tellers and frustrated law enforcement in his wake. Frank's ability to adapt and improvise was crucial to his success. He could think on his feet, changing his story or disappearing entirely whenever the heat was on. He was a master of disguise, changing his appearance and mannerisms to match his assumed identities. He was the ultimate chameleon, blending seamlessly into any environment, leaving everyone wondering who was the real Frank Abagnale. Frank's early life in Bronxville, New York, was far removed from the world of high-flying cons he would soon inhabit. Yet the seeds of his deceptive nature were sown amidst the seemingly ordinary routines of suburban life. Frank's father, Frank Abagnale Sr., was a successful businessman with a keen eye for appearances. The elder Abagnale instilled in his son the importance of social standing. These lessons formed the foundation of Frank's future exploits. The cracks in Frank's life widened at 15 when his parents divorced. Disillusioned with school, he was drawn to the open road. Frank discovered the allure of the open road. He ran away to New York City, seeking anonymity and reinvention. The bustling streets became his training ground. He honed his skills of observation and blending in. Frank met con artists who saw potential in him. They taught him the art of persuasion and deception, As Frank delved deeper into the world of cons, he realized that the bigger the lie, the more readily people believed it. He understood that society placed an inherent trust in authority figures. This led him to one of his most audacious cons yet: impersonating an airline pilot. At 16, Frank, armed with a forged Pan Am pilot's uniform, embarked on a journey that would cement his legend. Obtaining the uniform was a testament to his growing audacity. He contacted Pan Am, claiming to be a pilot who had lost his uniform. To lend credibility, he invented a fake employee ID. Pan Am fell for his ruse and mailed him a brand new uniform. With his meticulously crafted persona in place, Frank took to the skies, hitching free rides on commercial airlines by exploiting a loophole known as deadheading, a practice that allowed airline employees to fly for free on standby. He would forge Pan Am ID cards using his knowledge of the airline's procedures to appear convincing. His confidence and charm disarmed gate agents, who readily believed his claims of being a pilot on layover, eager to return to base. Once on board, Frank reveled in the perks of his assumed identity. He would chat up passengers, regaling them with fabricated tales of his adventures in the cockpit, basking in their admiration and awe. He enjoyed the free meals, the comfortable seats, and the thrill of seeing the world from above, all without spending a dime. His cons were not driven by malice or greed, but by a desire for adventure, a yearning for the finer things in life, and the sheer exhilaration of pulling off the impossible. Frank's life as a pilot wasn't all glamour and excitement. He constantly lived on the edge, aware that one wrong move, one slip-up, could bring his carefully constructed world crashing down. He meticulously planned his movements, never staying in one place for too long, always staying one step ahead of suspicion. He developed a sixth sense for danger, an uncanny ability to detect when his charade was at risk of being exposed, prompting him to disappear and reinvent himself once more. Maintaining the illusion of being Frank Williams, the charming and world-weary pilot, required constant vigilance and a knack for improvisation. Frank became a master of deception, spinning elaborate lies to explain away inconsistencies, always staying one step ahead of those who might see through his facade. He developed a network of aliases, each with its own backstory and paper trail, ready to be deployed at a moment's notice should his cover be blown. He became adept at forging documents, creating fake IDs, pilot licenses, and even college transcripts, using his artistic talents to replicate official seals and signatures with astonishing accuracy. He studied the psychology of deception, learning to read people, to identify their weaknesses and exploit their trust. He understood that confidence was key, that if he believed his own lies, others would too. Frank's nomadic lifestyle, while thrilling, also took its toll. The constant fear of being caught, the pressure of maintaining his charade, and the loneliness of living a lie weighed heavily on him. He missed the stability of a normal life, the comfort of genuine connections, but the allure of the con, the thrill of the chase, kept him tethered to his double life. He rationalized his actions by telling himself he was harming no one, that his victims were large corporations and faceless entities, but deep down a seed of doubt began to take root. Frank's stint as a Pan Am pilot couldn't last forever. The thrill of soaring through the skies, of living a life of luxury and adventure, eventually lost its luster as the constant fear of exposure gnawed at him. He knew he couldn't outrun his lies forever, so when the heat began to intensify, he did what any resourceful con artist would do. He reinvented himself. This time, he set his sights on a profession that commanded respect and trust: medicine. Transforming himself into a doctor proved surprisingly easy. Frank, with his natural charm and quick wit, had a knack for assimilating knowledge and projecting an air of authority. He procured a fake medical degree, again relying on his talent for forgery, and secured a position as a resident pediatrician at a busy Georgia hospital. He reasoned that working with children would be less demanding, minimizing the risk of exposing his lack of medical training. His days were filled with routine checkups, administering basic treatments, and offering comforting words to worried parents. To his surprise, he found a strange sense of satisfaction in this role. He enjoyed the trust placed in him, the gratitude in the eyes of his young patients. For a while he managed to convince himself that he was doing some good, that his deception was justified by the smiles he brought to the faces of sick children. Despite his lack of formal medical training, Frank possessed an uncanny ability to think on his feet and a keen sense of observation. He absorbed medical jargon from textbooks and conversations with colleagues, mimicking their diagnoses and treatment plans. He learned to fake his way through medical examinations, relying on his charm and confidence to mask his lack of expertise. However, his charade as a doctor wasn't without its close calls. There were moments when he was faced with life or death situations, moments that forced him to confront the ethical implications of his deception. He vividly recalled one harrowing night in the emergency room when a critically ill infant was rushed in, struggling to breathe. The attending physician was nowhere to be found, and Frank, against his better judgment, found himself stepping in. Drawing upon his limited knowledge gleaned from medical textbooks, he managed to stabilize the infant, buying precious time until the real doctor arrived. The relief he felt when the child was out of danger was palpable, mixed with a heavy dose of guilt and fear. He had played God, and he knew he had been incredibly lucky. The experience shook him to his core, forcing him to question the path he had chosen. Frank, tired of living a lie, decided to impersonate a lawyer, passing the Louisiana bar exam and securing a position at the Attorney General's office. He thrived in the legal world, impressing colleagues and judges alike, but his charade was short-lived. Frank's double life took a toll on his mental well-being, living in constant fear and isolation. The money he amassed felt meaningless, and he yearned for a normal life, free from deception. Frank's luck ran out as the FBI, led by Agent Carl Hanratty, closed in on him. Despite his cunning, a careless mistake in France led to his capture. Surrounded by police, Frank surrendered, feeling a strange sense of relief. Extradited to the US, Frank faced numerous charges but chose to cooperate with authorities. His insights into fraud helped the FBI, marking the beginning of his redemption. Frank's cons turned him into an international enigma, always staying one step ahead of global law enforcement. He thrived on the thrill of the chase, exploiting international borders and adopting new identities. Frank's life was a high-wire act, with close calls becoming routine. A narrow escape in Rio de Janeiro reminded him that his luck wouldn't last forever. Agent Carl Hanratty, a methodical and determined FBI investigator, made it his mission to catch Frank. He saw Frank as a brilliant mind exploiting trust, pushing Hanratty to work tirelessly to bring him to justice. Frank's intelligence and adaptability allowed him to evade capture, exploiting human psychology and system weaknesses. His cons were carefully crafted performances, making him a master of deception. Despite the glamour, Frank's life was lonely and filled with fear. He yearned for genuine connections and realized that true freedom lay in honesty and redemption. Captured and extradited, Frank faced the consequences of his actions. Amidst public scrutiny, he found hope in confronting his past and seeking atonement. Upon his return to the United States, Frank was extradited to New York to face charges for his crimes. Stepping off the plane, his wrists shackled, he was met by a throng of journalists and photographers, their cameras flashing, their microphones thrust in his face, eager for a statement, a confession, a glimpse into the mind of the notorious con man. He kept his head down, his face a mask of shame and regret, the weight of his deceptions pressing down on him like a physical burden. He was arraigned on multiple counts of forgery, fraud, and impersonation, the charges spanning his elaborate cons across multiple states and continents. The prosecution, armed with a mountain of evidence, painted him as a ruthless manipulator, a master of deception who had preyed on the trust of countless individuals and institutions. They demanded a harsh sentence, arguing that anything less would be a miscarriage of justice, a slap on the wrist for a criminal mastermind who had shown no remorse for his actions. Frank's court-appointed lawyer, a seasoned public defender, advised him to plead not guilty, to fight the charges, to leverage his intelligence and charisma to sway the jury. But Frank, weary from years of living a lie, had no desire to prolong the inevitable. He had grown tired of the charade, the constant need to be someone he wasn't. He longed for authenticity, for a chance to come clean, to express remorse for the harm he had caused, and to begin the long road to redemption. Against his lawyer's advice, Frank decided to plead guilty to all charges. He stood before the judge, his voice barely a whisper, and acknowledged his crimes, expressing remorse for the pain he had caused his victims and the shame he had brought upon his family. He spoke of his troubled childhood, his longing for acceptance, and his misguided attempts to fill the void in his life with adventure and material possessions. He didn't ask for forgiveness, but he pleaded for a chance to make amends, to use his unique skills and experiences to help others avoid the mistakes he had made. The judge, a seasoned jurist known for his fairness and compassion, listened intently to Frank's confession. He acknowledged the severity of his crimes, the damage he had inflicted, but he also recognized a glimmer of hope in his willingness to take responsibility and his desire to atone for his past. He sentenced Frank to 12 years in federal prison, a far cry from the life sentence the prosecution had sought, but a significant punishment nonetheless. The sentence, while harsh, came with a glimmer of hope. The judge, recognizing Frank's intelligence and his potential for rehabilitation, included a provision in his sentence. He would be eligible for parole after serving 4 years, provided he cooperated with the FBI in their ongoing investigations into fraud and forgery. It was an opportunity to turn his life around, to use his knowledge of deception for good, and to begin to repay his debt to society. Prison life was a far cry from the world of luxury and excitement Frank had known. The drab routine, the constant surveillance, and the loss of freedom were a constant reminder of the consequences of his actions. Yet amidst the harsh realities of incarceration, he found an unexpected opportunity for reflection and self-discovery. Stripped of his aliases and material possessions, he was forced to confront his true self, to grapple with the motivations behind his deceptions, and to confront the harm he had caused. He spent hours in the prison library devouring books on psychology, sociology, and criminal justice, seeking to understand the forces that had shaped his life and the choices he had made. He enrolled in GED classes, determined to complete his education, a goal he had abandoned during his years on the run. He even joined the prison choir, finding solace in the harmonies of music, a reminder of the beauty that still existed in the world despite the darkness he had experienced. He befriended other inmates, listening to their stories, their struggles, their dreams. He shared his own experiences, not with pride or bravado, but with humility and regret. He realized that beneath the surface they were all flawed individuals, searching for meaning and connection in a world that often felt cold and unforgiving. He discovered a sense of purpose in helping others, offering advice, encouragement, and a listening ear. Word of Frank's past as a master con man spread through the prison grapevine, reaching the ears of the warden, a no-nonsense administrator who had a reputation for being tough but fair. Intrigued by Frank's unique skills and his willingness to cooperate with the authorities, the warden arranged for him to meet with a team of FBI agents who specialized in white-collar crime. The meeting was tense at first, a clash of worlds between law enforcement officers tasked with upholding the law and a convicted criminal who had made a career out of breaking it. But as Frank shared his insights into the minds of con artists, his intricate knowledge of forgery techniques, and his understanding of the human vulnerabilities that made people susceptible to deception, the agents listened with growing interest. They realized that Frank possessed a unique perspective, a deep understanding of the criminal mind that could prove invaluable in their fight against fraud and forgery. They saw in him not just a criminal, but a valuable asset, a potential ally in their ongoing efforts to protect the public and uphold the law. And so began an unlikely partnership, a collaboration between a convicted conman seeking redemption and the very agency he'd spent years evading, a testament to the transformative power of second chances and the unexpected paths life can take. Frank's willingness to share his knowledge of scams and cons proved invaluable to the FBI. He possessed an almost intuitive understanding of the criminal mind, a sixth sense for spotting vulnerabilities that could be exploited. This, coupled with his genuine desire to atone for his past, made him an invaluable asset to the very agency he had once outsmarted. He began working as a consultant for the FBI while still incarcerated, helping them develop new strategies and training programs to combat fraud and forgery. His work took him beyond the confines of prison walls. He lectured at FBI training facilities, sharing his experiences and insights with new recruits, emphasizing the importance of staying one step ahead of the criminal mind. He helped banks and corporations improve their security protocols, identifying weaknesses in their systems and devising countermeasures to prevent future scams. Frank, the master con man, had become Frank, the protector, using his knowledge of deception to shield others from the same fate he had experienced. The transition from conman to consultant wasn't without its challenges. He faced skepticism from those who doubted his sincerity, who saw him as a criminal opportunist trying to game the system once more. He understood their doubts, the weight of his past transgressions, but he was determined to prove them wrong, to show them that his remorse was genuine, that he was committed to using his experiences for good. Upon his release from prison, Frank continued his work with the FBI, becoming a renowned security consultant and lecturer. He founded his own company, Abagnale and Associates, dedicated to educating businesses and individuals about fraud prevention. He traveled the world sharing his story not with pride or bravado, but with humility and a genuine desire to help others avoid the mistakes he had made. His life story, once a tale of deception and intrigue, became a testament to the transformative power of redemption. He published his autobiography, Catch Me If You Can, which became an international bestseller, captivating readers with its thrilling account of his exploits and his eventual journey to redemption. The book was adapted into a critically acclaimed film directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Leonardo DiCaprio as Frank, further cementing his place in popular culture. Despite achieving fame and success, Frank remained grounded, never forgetting the lessons he had learned during his years of living a lie. He dedicated himself to his family, finding solace and stability in the love and support of his wife and children. He became a philanthropist, supporting organizations that helped ex-convicts reintegrate into society, believing everyone deserved a second chance. Frank Abagnale's life is a testament to the complexities of human nature, a story about the allure of deception, the consequences of our choices, and the transformative power of redemption. He turned his life of crime into a force for good, using his unique skills and experiences to protect others from the same pitfalls he had encountered. His legacy serves as a reminder that even from the darkest of pasts, hope, redemption, and the possibility of making a positive impact on the world can emerge.